Hey guys, we've finally been given the hero adjustment notice. We've got the notes for the hero changes, we have the official patch notes, so let's get into it. Now I'm going to skip over the added heroes, we talked about those in a different video, so I'm just going to go straight to the actual changes to the existing heroes, as there was a bit of uncertainty about what they've actually done. So, all rangers will now be classified as fighters, including, well, the whole list you see there: Corsac, Daisy, Delinka, Zankar, Hayden, Dreammarker, Ryder, Halder, and Lilia. Obviously, Daisy was the most popular that I'm aware of. She had a really good mechanic for restoring costs, so that make it easier for you to get down more expensive heroes first. Araka has now been changed so that her attacks deal piercing damage instead of common damage. Now what this means, if you go to heroes, I'll select Nyx, you go to skills, up here damage type piercing. Piercing deals 20% bonus damage to light armor, magic deals 20% bonus damage to heavy armor. From what I understand, it's always better to have piercing or magic. Common doesn't give you any benefit. So basically 20% damage bonus to Araka when she's against light armored targets, so that's a nice boost for her. Nyx has had her deployment cost reduced from 25 to 22. That's quite a nice nudge. She was quite expensive to place. Her physical attack effect has been adjusted. Previously it was 80% of her attack in AoE. Now it's 100% bonus. Nyx is quite underwhelming as heroes go. A lot of people have her and don't think a great deal about her. I know some end game players think she's quite good, so maybe we haven't really seen her full potential yet. Maybe it's in her awakenings, I'm not sure. But it's good that they're nudging things along in the right direction. She's getting some buffs. I think she could probably do with a little bit more, but I've got her. I've just recently got her to 6-star and promoted maxed, so we'll see. Maybe I'll change my mind in the coming days when I have a bit more time to play with her, but it's good to see buffs for her either way. Morrigan had a bug fix regarding her bomb only hurting one person. Calypso had a couple of bug fixes. First one to do with the stats not being applied to her steel stone, so this should make her quite a bit stronger, though I would suspect this is probably in certain edge cases, not all the time. Fixed the bug where evil protection's duration was abnormal before awakening 3. I'm guessing the time was not consistent, I don't know. Before, for her evil protection effect, this is just a passive. The caster and her seal stones gain the Eldritch God's Blessing every 50 to 40 seconds, triggering 2-hit combos on attacks for 6 to 10 seconds. Now the blessing duration has gone from 50 to 40 to 35 to 25, so it now triggers a lot more often, and the duration is the same. So now we've gone from a 25% uptime to around a 40% uptime, I think. So the uptime is increased a lot, so that's a buff to Calypso on her passive effect triggering. Ignatius was nerfed slightly. His Awakening 1 effect, this is just his Awakening 1 effect, I believe is nerfed in my opinion. Previously, it meant his ultimate made enemies take an additional 5% damage on top of what they already took. Now it just increases his crit rate by 20%. Most people are already crit rate capped for what they're using characters like Ignatius for, especially Awakening. Ignatius is primarily a faction lord that you use in Guild Boss to boost your team's damage output, especially for people like Zillitu. So losing 5% damage on your Zillitu is going to suck. So that's unfortunate. I think this is just to try to make sure that Twin Fiend is more useful, because at the moment Ignatius kind of runs the show. I know a lot of people choose Ignatius over Twin Fiend, so I'm not sad to see this. Also, I don't have him, so it doesn't hurt me. Corsac is now a faction cult member. I believe Corsac was one of the rangers that's been made a fighter, and they've added some effects to him. They've given him awakenings as well, and you'll see this. I won't go over these effects too much. I don't have him, so I don't really know what the changes are. They seem to be buffs. They've added a slow effect to him, and they've changed his recovery charges, and they've given him some fairly standard awakenings. But Daisy was also a ranger, and she's also been given a squad. This time she's in the Watcher faction, and as you can see, she's been given awakenings as well. I like this a lot. All epics should be in a faction. They should all have awakenings. Some of them don't, and they really suck. Cyclone, for example, is an awful hero. I apologize if you've pulled him. They do seem to be making... Let me quickly go and show you. If you go to the gallery, at the bottom there's an Elemental Fission faction. I'm pretty sure Cyclone is going to get chucked in there, and a bunch of others will as well. So hopefully that fixes some of the remaining heroes. But it definitely seems like they're making an effort to make sure that all heroes are in factions. So good changes there. So Daisy, she's had some changes to her Freedom Defender ability, so it doesn't have a cost regen effect anymore, but it grants more attack and crit damage. Instead, it previously just granted attack. Her Rebel now restores a bit more cost than it used to do. 2 more at the max level, so nothing crazy, but it's something. And she's been given awakening effects. So that's pretty good for her overall. A lot of people use Daisy to help get other units out faster. She was probably the best of the rangers before they were changed into fighters and given squads. So that's pretty good to see. Kepron is a fighter who likes to die and revive a lot. Now he gets revival increment increases by 6 seconds up to 18 seconds. So if he dies 3 times, it will be 18 seconds long before you can spawn him, which is unfortunate. It's kind of his thing. But each death does increase his damage by 5%, up to 15%, so I guess it's assuming 3 deaths. And his Awakening 5 now increases the passive's damage by 10%, rather than extending the passive's duration by 5%. So yeah, interesting changes to Khephren. Not sure how useful it is. I think spawning him faster would be more ideal for players. He'd be useful in GR2, just to drop him down to eat the boulder rolling guys, just to take the hit and reduce their max health. They take a big damage when they hit someone. So it's a shame that they've extended his revival duration. I felt like that was his gimmick. Now, Aswan's changes are probably some of the most highly anticipated, the ones that we wanted to see the most. A lot of people have him built, a lot of people relied on him. He was a staple in a lot of people's arena teams. So I thought, I'd heard a lot of people upset about this. I don't have him built myself. I do have him now, finally. I thought maybe his damage was nerfed or something, but as it seems, his hamstring previously slowed by 75% for up to 2.5 seconds. Now it slows by 50% for up to 2 seconds. So less duration, less slow. Duration doesn't matter in my opinion. You're going to keep hitting them and resetting it anyway, but the slow is what matters. Having 25% less slow is quite annoying, but the main nerf is in his Awakening 1. Previously, while he had hamstring up, he would be immobilizing people, which is fully rooting them in place, cannot move. Now it will just increase their slow back to how it previously was before he was even awakened. So he will regain his 75% slow at Awakening 1, but he won't immobilize anymore. I think this was probably done because of Arena. Playing against Aswans in Arena later on at high BPs where it's really hard to kill the later waves in time before they hit your wall, Aswan could just root them for ages and stop them getting to the wall. And it was very potent and very powerful, and maybe they wanted to reduce that. I'm not sure. But I'm glad they haven't nerfed him too much. They've just nerfed his Awakening 1's ability to completely immobilize enemies. I don't think this really changes his capability, his usefulness for the majority of players, especially new players. He's still going to be very valuable for you. I think it mainly just affects his ability to be useful in Arena, which I'm not too concerned about. That being said, I would prefer it if fusion heroes were a bit more protected. I think it's okay for fusion heroes to be a bit stronger. I would rather it be them than a legendary hero that's harder to get. So, that's Aswan. Iona has been changed a fair bit. So previously she kind of just did AoE damage and she did some slowing effects, but now after the changes that we've been given, there's been some changes to her attack speed. The trigger's around the same duration, but she gains less attack speed for a lower duration. The text has been simplified, so it's hard to know exactly what's changed or exactly what they mean, but her auto attack now just does AoE damage. Before it kind of infers that it does AoE damage, but it's written like after multiple attacks it triggers. So I don't know how many attacks, what it triggers, and it slows, and now it doesn't say it slows. So we can assume that's gone, no more slow. Her ultimate previously just gave you bonus damage and again slowed enemies on hit. Now no more slow, so she's lost all of her slowing CC utility. But now when she hits people, places a domain, a star domain at the location, which deals area damage, and then after a delay, stars will fall within range of the star domain. 4 stars will fall, and they will deal area damage, and the ultimate now lasts for 20 seconds. So it seems interesting. I think it's cool. She's probably now buffed for GR1. It looks like she does more AoE damage. That's how I read this. It seems like they've moved her to focus on area damage instead of slowing people. She's more of a damage dealer than a slow utility hero. I think that makes sense. We already had some pretty good options for CC and for slowing, so it's good to have her do more AoE damage. This will help out a lot of people who are struggling in GR1, I think. But do let me know what you think of the change for her, if it's impacted your teams or if it's helped or if it's made it harder. Wanaga is a very popular epic healer. She is often used a lot in GB teams because of her ability to boost attack speed. Her chain of healing effect has been tweaked slightly. Mainly they've just made it come up less. Her rage cap has been increased and her initial rage has been increased in line with it. So if that's moved equally, then all that changes is the time it takes to get up to it the second time you cast it onwards. So it's a bit harder to have her chain of healing up consistently, though the duration has been increased by 5 seconds. So on balance, this might not mean that much of a change. Her mania has been changed. Previously it would be up to 70 attack speed, now it is up to 50 attack speed. However, the duration has been increased by 2 seconds and the cooldown has been reduced by 5 seconds. So although the attack speed increment is less, the uptime is now higher. And I personally like consistency. It's annoying in Guild Boss when the third shield is up and your auto-applying characters are now on cooldown and they're not ready, and it kind of screws up your team. So more consistency is good in my books. Awakening 3 is the same. The only difference is that now it does not stack with Mania. So previously she would be giving attack speed to everyone on the field by 30. So this is quite a heavy nerf to her Guild Boss team. From how I read it, overall, if it did stack before, she is now giving her allies 50 less attack speed, assuming Mania stacking with Awakening 3. So that's a big hit to her Guild Boss utility. I still think people will use her in Guild Boss. If you need a second healer, if you can't get by with just Anvita, then Wanaga is probably the best choice to take alongside Anvita. And the bonus attack speed is always going to be nice. So yeah, overall, I think a bit of nerfing to her attack speed, a little bit more consistent on some things, but it's kind of just pushing numbers around. The main thing is there's a drop in the amount of attack speed she applies to heroes, so that's unfortunate. Deimos is a epic werewolf. He is factionless. He is very strong. He is fabled as one of the best damage dealers in Guild Boss, and as you can see, he has been nerfed for it. So previously his attacks would apply 2 stacks of tearing, but now it applies 1. And his ult now has no initial rage, so he doesn't start with any rage. You have to wait for the whole thing to fill up before he can activate his ultimate. The tearing effect is the bigger nerf. The ancestral presence nerf to his initial rage is a pain, but it's not big. But mainly it is the tearing change. I don't know how big of a nerf this is. I don't have him, but there's definitely a nerf. They definitely want to weaken him a bit because people were referring to him as an honorary legendary. Yasusi had a few fixes to her crystal bomb. Seemed like it just wouldn't place. From reading this, it couldn't place on tiles that were undeployable, so that's a very limiting. And also it couldn't be summoned to enemy locations when the ult was activated, so I don't know when it could have been summoned. Anyway, now the grade 3 crystal bomb deals AoE damage instead of single target damage, so that's very good. And also her Awakening 3 no longer applies magic vulnerability. Instead, Crystal Bomb and grade 2 Crystal Bomb deal damage to 2 more targets when they detonate. So they're trying to make her more of an AoE damage dealer. From what I understand, they're probably trying to make it easier to build a GR1 team. GR1 is so reliant on pulls. If you have Zealous, if you have Ajax, Arrogance, Vierna, you need these kind of pulls to have a chance. Nyx helps a bit, but you still need more. You really need AoE mages, and Iona is great for that, but Yasusi was never quite rated, so maybe this makes her a bit more viable. And in that line, Rake has had some changes as well. He is a faction lord for the esoteric faction. They have adjusted his Awakening 3 and 5 as well as his lord skill. I don't really know enough about his 3 and 5, so I'm going to skip over it. You can see the changes here. I don't have any thoughts on them because I don't know them very well. His Lord skill change, however, previously increased the duration of rage skills released by faction members on the battlefield extended by 5 seconds, so that was good. Mainly, the people to note in his faction is Elowen, is the legendary in that faction, so increasing her ult by 5 seconds is nice. And now, instead, the rage cap is minus 20% and the damage received is increased by 10%. So kind of similar to the Nightmare faction where they have reduced healing received by 20%. Instead, the Esoteric faction with Rake as the Lord will take 10% more damage. One of the more interesting things to note, and this is kind of an edge case, but Ajax, the legendary Dragon Rider hero, he is factionless. He is in the Unnameable faction, and that allows him to gain anyone's faction benefit. So I previously thought he would be good in Rake's faction as it increased his ult by 5 seconds, but now I don't know. But effectively, the rage cap reduction versus duration of rage ultimates is kind of a similar thing, right? You're just nudging them on different ends. The bigger the rage cap, the better rage cap reduction is. 20% of a larger number is better, obviously. Now it's better for people who have really high rage caps, is my belief. But overall, I don't know enough about Rake to say if that's good changes or bad changes. Well, I guess we'll see. If anyone has any opinions on that, let me know. It'd be interesting to hear people who have Rake. Overall, the changes from this update seem pretty good. It's good to see these changes. It's good to see that they have been paying attention to the guild boss runs, as that's where most of the endgame is. It's good to see there's a focus on AoE magic damage, because it's quite hard to get a good GR1 team functioning. The changes to Aswan, I'm kind of iffy on. Overall, I think my preference would be to not nerf a hero that's a fuse hero, though he was annoying in Arena, but again, he's a fuse hero. I think it's great that they've done this with the Rangers. I think Rangers definitely should have been removed as a subgroup, subclass. Making them fighters makes a lot more sense. Making them faction members as well and giving them awakenings is definitely a step in the right direction. Ignatius did need to be nerfed a bit. He was too staple in too many runs, and there is a legendary lord in the same faction that was overlooked in favor of an epic hero, which is not ideal. So ideally, I would like to have seen more changes in this patch overall. Twin Fiend probably could have done with a buff. Calypso's bug fixes and buff, sure, that's decent. Nyx, I think, probably needed a bit more buff, but we'll see how that shakes out. I think it's good to nudge numbers and see how it goes. So I'm hoping we get more consistent balancing notes. It's good that they're doing this. I would like these notes to have been longer and to have more changes. I think, for example, some more heroes are factionless and some more heroes are not particularly useful because they have no awakening and no faction. For example, Cyclone is factionless and he has no awakening. If you do note, at the bottom of the gallery there is an elemental fission faction, which for sure Cyclone will be going into, so hopefully soon we'll get some more changes and they'll be pushing more heroes into factions and giving us more lords. So hopefully we have that to look forward to, but overall, not a bad patch change for the balancing. I would like to see a lot more changes. There are a lot of heroes who need a bit more love. especially now that they've brought in heroes like Arrogance and Vienna, especially Arrogance. He is quite a power creepy hero. He is very, very potent. Anyone who has him will probably agree with me on this. Very good in all gear raids, and he outshines a lot of people. I don't know where I would use Nyx or even Zealous over Arrogance. Arrogance just does that much damage, and he is that reliable in hitting anything anywhere. He is way too strong. So I would like to see some more balance changes. More heroes need to be adjusted, especially to keep in line with the power creeping that we seem to be getting with the new heroes coming in. So that's my opinion on these changes. Overall, pretty decent. Hopefully we see more soon. So thank you very much. Have a nice one, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.